Hey guys, Dilby here. Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through my new remix on Deep Palmer of a track called The Light. It's featured heavily in all my sets for the first half of this year. I've been playing it non-stop since I made it. It's also now released and it's been doing very well on Beatport, where it's been #1 on the Deep House charts in the hype section. If you want to have a listen to the track, there's a link in the description to Beatport and Spotify where you can go check it out. First of all, let's find out how I made this bad boy. If you like these videos and you want to ensure I keep bringing them to you on the regular, the best way you can do that is through Patreon. There's a link in the description to Patreon. On Patreon, you can find the download files to pretty much all of the projects that I do on these videos, and I've prepared a special treat to go with this video, so don't miss that. But for now, let's jump into Ableton and see how I made this bad boy. Alright guys, so here we are inside Ableton, and this is the project file for my remix of The Light. It's the track you heard in the intro, but let's just play a wee sample here. I've been loving this one. It's been working really well in my sets, and it's kind of, I think it's got that classic Dilby sound somewhere between kind of deep house, a little bit progressive, but basically my vibe. I've got a pretty good working relationship with Deep Palmer, and they asked me if I wanted to remix something from the back catalogue. So I was listening through and I found this with the vocal from Chasing Kurt, and it's such a phenomenal vocal. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take this and I'm going to rework it into my style. And I think if I look through the project, the only thing I've used from the original is the vocal. Everything else is additional. So sometimes that's the way it works with remixes. Sometimes you use more of the parts, sometimes less. This one, it was less of the parts. I think the track was a little bit older and a little bit more chilled. I think the original was 120 BPM and this one's 125. As soon as I heard those vocals, I had a pretty good idea of like how I could make it work. I have got a reference track in the project here, which is Joseph Capriati's deep remix of Sandy Rivera, I Can't Stop. I mean, I don't think there's too much that I've taken from that, to be honest. I normally when I start, I kind of like try to have an idea of the vibe I want to go for and try and find something roughly in that kind of zone. Generally like a few things, but in this case I got that. I think it's quite different, so I probably haven't even used it for the mixing. I remember I was in a little bit of a time crunch getting this finished, so I don't think I even referenced anything doing the mixing. I just kind of like whacked it out. Not best practice really. I mean, I do a lot of mixing, so my ears are pretty good for it, hopefully, although I do normally use references, and I do suggest you use references. Anyway, let's get in here and have a look through what I've done in the remix. We've got 2 kicks. This is Old Faithful, the standard kick I use in most tracks, like at least half of my tracks. If you find a good kick, keep it, use it. What I've done here is use this EQ to basically take off a bit of the top end. And then I've used this top kick just to give the top a little bit of a different character. So it's just a very subtle click. It's kind of softer than the main transient of this original sample, but it does need that when I've taken off the top to just help it kind of cut through the mix a little bit. Now let's have a look at the claps. So you can see I've got 2 different midis here. This is just a straight clap on every second beat, 2 and the 4. Standard stuff. I think this is like an 808 clap. Now I've got another MIDI here, which has just got a couple of little additional hits in it. Keeping it kind of rolling, bit of swing. Now I've got this, what I've called disco beat. Nice loose clap. So that's going to really contrast well with the kind of drum machine clap and give it a bit more vibe. Let's have a listen all together. And it's got this kind of little skippy groove in there, but it's very subtle. Normally I would kind of isolate this, but for some reason I haven't, and I have put a reverb over the top of it, but I don't know, it works somehow. Normally I would probably not do that. I guess I just kind of threw it in and forgot about it. It's like the beat there, the hats and the, like, I guess it's like the top of a kick drum or something, are pretty quiet. So I guess in the whole kind of scheme of the track, I wasn't really bothered by it. But having the reverb on that does give it a bit of a vibe as well. So it's adding a bit of atmosphere to the drums. And because they're subtle and quiet, it's not kind of washing it out too much, which is what we want to avoid. We want nice, tight, crispy drums, but with some good vibe and atmosphere. So we've got a closed hat here, basic offbeat hat. Closed hat. This utility here, I've got this set to swap, so that's just shifting the left and right channels. If we look at the metering here, we can see it's slightly to the right, and originally it was slightly to the left, but we can see here this open hat is also slightly to the left. So now I just hit that. It swaps the right and left channels. So now they're just sitting panned from each other. So it's just basically like inverting the panorama. So nice tight hat, right? Okay, so what we start with, the beginning of the drums, is this driving shaker, just a loop. It's nice and tight and kind of got a bit of groove to it, but it's quite driving. So it's kind of starting with a good bit of energy there, and we bring in the closed hat. And you notice how the shaker is like a little bit more open, got less attack here. And then the closed hat is like nice and tight and got some strong attack. So it kind of helps to accentuate that as we come through and more elements start coming in. The drums are pretty simple in this one actually. We bring in the open hat. I've got this open groove hat, which is basically just some additional hits using a different sample. But you know, the drums are quite like groovy and driving. Now, one thing I did add when I started the track, which I'll just introduce now, is this atmosphere. So this just kind of helps to set the scene and have a bit of a vibe when I'm creating. So it's just an audio sample, and I've pitched it down 4 semitones to be in key. And I've got this, I've called it open turnaround hat. So it's just like on the end of every 2 bars. It's got this kind of classic disco vibe. So it's kind of a long metallic sounding hat. Love that. I use that in so many of my beats. And then we've got an additional shaker, which I've called shuffle. And this is just like a bit more kind of groovy, a bit more textural. So nice driving beat. Something interesting which I found when I came back to this project, right? In the percussion, so normally all my tracks have some decent amount of percussion. I like some tribal percussion and stuff. I realized that this clip was turned off, and I think that is actually a mistake that I made. Although when I listen back now, I feel like the conga that I had here is actually detracting from the overall track. I think when at some point, I turned these clips off. If you press 0 on your keyboard, you can toggle clips on and off. And I somehow turned these off. I think they were supposed to be in there, and they kind of didn't make it into the final version of the track. And I believe that was unintentional, but I think it's for the best actually. I'm pretty sure that that's what I intended for the track to be, and they didn't make the cut. Well, accidentally didn't make the cut. So let's look at the bass. So we've got 2 layers. Basically, this is the bass. Here's the MIDI for it. So very, very standard bass line. We've got the downbeat, we've got the 16th, we've got the offbeat repeated, and then we just switch it up on the last half bar of this 2-bar phrasing, and then we pop this one just up an octave. So that little turnaround at the end just helps to kind of reset the groove and make it sound a little bit more interesting. It's just a preset from Diva. I'm not sure if I tweaked it or not, but it's basically sawtooth and then another sawtooth as a kind of sub, and then it's got this 7th as with a triangle wave, which is just kind of giving it a little bit of harmonic texture, but it is quite subby. So if I take away that triangle wave, it's very subtle what it's adding there. I think the preset might be a bit more open. It's more meaningful when the filter's more open, but it does give it just a little bit more harmonics, a little bit more interest. Got a limiter here because what I have introduced here is velocity differentiation, and I added to the synth this velocity sensitivity to the filter envelope. So that means that when notes are played at a higher velocity, the filter's more open, lower velocity, filter's more closed. There's no velocity interaction from the amplification, so the notes should be all at a consistent volume, but when there's more high frequency, the notes become a bit louder. So I'm using this basic as limiter from Waves to basically just compress them make sure that those like notes with more frequency don't jump out too much. The reason I like this compressor is because it's got this knob here where you can just pull it down. So it will pull down the threshold and the ceiling. So it basically adds compression without getting louder. So that's not getting any louder, it's just taking off some of those peaks. On most compressors, on most limiters, you pull down the threshold, which is kind of like adding volume as well. But this can simultaneously pull down the output. So it's basically it's very subtle limiting just for a little bit of control, so we don't get too many of those notes jumping out. Now I've duplicated the bass and we've got different patch in the same preset bank. Nice bit of delay from Native Instruments Replica XT, and I'm just taking away all the sub-frequencies here. So this is really just about the texture and the top end. And the reason I've separated it, I normally try and do everything on one bass line if I can. The reason why I've used a second one here is because it's basically about the delay and about the crispiness. That's why I've kept this one quite subby. This one's got a little bit more high frequencies coming through and that delay. So this one here is more mono, this one's more stereo. Separating them, there's a reason. I think people do too much layering for no apparent reason, just feeling like, oh, well, you have to have a sub layer and you have to have a this and you have to have that. That can be a really good thing, but simple is generally better unless there's a good reason. So that's sounding pretty nice together. So that's basically the backbone of the track. Now the next main bit is this pluck. I've got 2 channels. We see the MIDI here, it's coming on the 16th before the half bar, and it's there, and then it's inverted here. So one of them just has a strong delay. So that's just helping to add a little bit more interest to that riff. I think I might have had the delay on there first, and it just felt a little bit repetitive. Or if I do it the opposite way. So having a little bit different just helps to switch it up and make it a little bit more interesting. It's extending it from a 1-bar loop to a 2-bar loop. Right, so basically, I think, okay, if we had to grab one more element that makes up the kind of backbone of this track, I would say it's this vocal hit. Okay, so I've just taken a random word from the a cappella, done a bit of EQing to take out some of the frequencies. My most used delay, Echo Boy Jr. Pure Unmask, which is basically like a spectral sidechain. It's just ducking when the main a cappella is playing, the main vocal's playing. And then I've also got another one because I've split this little bit. I kind of made some vocal chops which went throughout, and then as the arrangement went on, I didn't use them, but I have used it once here. Anyway, we'll get to that. That's kind of a body of the track, I would say. I repeat this in almost every one of these walkthrough videos that I do. Like, it's important to have this kind of ID for your track, this signature sound, that if you just solo the bare minimum things, you can still recognize the track. So I think for this track, that is the kind of the backbone, the signature sound of the track. Once you hear that, you can recognize the track. Without the vocals or without any of the further synth development, that there is the kind of ID of the track. And any elements that I add from here on need to support that and not detract from that. Otherwise, we're heading in the wrong direction. So let's have a look at what those other elements are. I've got a couple of organ chords here. Oh, okay, yeah, I mean, those plucks, they're just a one-shot sample. Super, super simple stuff. So I've got this organ chord. It happens at the end of every second bar, which is when that bass line note is jumping up here. So it's kind of, it's following the foundation of the track. I've got a chord device here. It looks complicated, but it's just playing a minor seventh with the bass doubled down an octave and the seventh chord, which is inverted down. So if I were to program this, so the chord would look like this. Boom, and then we've taken the D and duplicated it down there. And then we've taken the C and put it to here. So simple chord, nothing crazy, and I like using the chord device for ease basically. So I'm using the add some random preset for the velocity device, set to 30. So that means that from whatever this velocity is, it's going to randomize it up or down by 30. So quite a lot. So that the point of that is to make each time that plays sound different. So we're using this preset from Analog Lab. So this is the preset on the synth. Pretty simple stuff. I imagine I just flicked through some organ presets until I found one that was... See, each one of those is slightly different. Valhalla Ubmod chorus, tremolator from Sound Toys, a little bit of compression, and this volume knob. So what this is very simple, but basically I've created a rack with a utility in it. So the problem with utility and creating automation with utility is, let me open one up. Utility goes from 0 to negative infinity and close to negative 60, right? So when you're making automation with utility, just doing that is a lot, but I find it easier to draw automation in quite quickly. So yeah, we're going that far to get to minus 4 dB, or that far is already minus 6, right? So utility, basically, it's too sensitive. It's got too much play on the volume. So I created this rack and mapped it and put the minimum at minus 12, maximum at plus 12. And that just means I can crank this and it's going to be much less sensitive. Now we've got another organ chord, another minor seventh chord, different preset. Basically, we're just kind of creating textures here. So we're getting some kind of call and response, which is important. Now I've got another sample. It's almost an organ-y kind of sounding thing. It's very subtle, very quiet. It could probably be a bit louder, to be honest. Yeah, so it's adding very subtle texture. So let's talk about this pluck riff. This is kind of the, I guess, the main melodic signature of the track, or the main melodic hook of the track. It comes in the main break and then carries on just after. But it's kind of helping to lift things up and add some intensity. So nothing too crazy. It has some automation on the filter cutoff. And this old thing from Waves, Metaflanger, I'm using the mix there so it helps to like really add some intensity. So it's a cool vibe. But like a lot of the track is quite deep, and then this adds a good amount of kind of, yeah, intensity. And I love how that Metaflanger just helps it feel kind of spacey. Right. So we've got one more element here, which is this ARP shot. So what I've done to create this is basically just duplicate the pluck riff. Got a different preset. You can see here from the MIDI, right? I've kind of followed it, but not exactly. So that's that pluck riff. And then I've kind of designed this to play together with it. So I mean, on its own, it just sounds... It's pretty subtle in the track, but it's just adding a little bit more harmonic complexity. Subtle, and it kind of helps to reinforce that melodic theme as well. Now I've got some pads here. I've already shown you this Atmos. Got another atmosphere deep pad, just some volume automation. It's just coming in the breaks to kind of help create a bit of tension and release. Yeah, so it gives it more vibe in the breaks. We've got a high string, the old classic JV 1080, deep strings, pretty much my go-to. Nice, and I've got this phase opener, which is a pad. It looks like it's from a Christoph pack, and it's a Juno sample according to the name. And I've got this phaser on it, and I'm automating the cutoff. Just helps to create more tension, more release when it comes away. So that's all the melodic elements done and dusted. There's quite a few, but it's based around a really simple theme, like I said. Okay, so we've got the main vocal, unbelievable. I can see the light right at the end of the tunnel. So I just got a little bit of compression on that. I'm using the Waves CLA vocal, which I use a lot. This is the default preset. Normally I take off the reverb and delay and stereo, but I haven't in this case. Pure DS, another. I really love these simple plugins from Sonable. Do what they say on the tin. I'm moving to a new dimension. Now you can see here I've chopped these, and yeah, so they're all different volumes here on the gain, on the clip gain. So I've basically just chopped them to try and balance it out so that the compressor's not doing too much work, but there's less dynamics in the vocal, so that it's kind of strong and solid the whole way through. And I'm just sending that to a little bit of ping pong delay and a bit of reverb on my return tracks. And then here, as I mentioned, I did have this kind of like recurring chop here. So you can see I was rocking that every kind of 4 bars, but it didn't work out. I've got this ah, which is another chop from the vocal. It's the start of that I Can See the Light. Again, with some EQ delay, bit of reverb from Superplate Sound Toys. So I'm using the vocals as kind of instruments to just kind of keep it going throughout, adding different harmonic textures, but I've kept the actual main vocal sections relatively sparse. You can see I did have more going on. I sent it to the label and they suggested that I take out some of the vocals. I think their idea was that like the people who play my music are playing in more kind of underground settings. They're probably not going to want so much vocals in the track. And I think it was a good call. But I like vocals, so we've kind of got these little chops and samples happening throughout. Now we've got this vocal reverse, which is basically just taking a sound from the vocal and putting a reverb over it, long reverb, and then bouncing it down. And then I'm kind of using it as a riser. It's a great trick, works in almost every track. Now let's have a quick run through the effects. There's quite a few in here, but my whole ethos with effects is to do the heavy lifting with the elements of the track. And then these are kind of subtle, generally a bit more, not too loud in the track. And then they're just to kind of accentuate what I've done with automation and arrangement. So we've got a crash. We've got some fills here. On my fills, I often use overdrive to just kind of thicken them up, and I use Pan Man from Sound Toys a lot. This spaz random setting, and I pull down the width. I think normally the width is at max. That's a bit crazy. So it's basically just randomizing the panorama every 16th, and it just helps to create some stereo for the fill. So it just moves it across the panorama, and because each of those notes is happening on a 16th, it feels like the notes are kind of playing in different places in the panorama. This helps it to feel a bit more stereo, basically. Got another fill here, and that's just happening once at the end of the main break. I've got this roll. Nice. And then basically a bunch of percussion hits, just helping to add a little bit of percussive flavor. Love it. Some impact type things. Another one I've called Impact Bomb. Splash, which I guess is like a noise type thing. Yeah, kind of like a noise cymbal. I've changed the envelope here, the fade, to make it fade out sooner. Bit of a reverb clap. Some noise. Reverse crash. A riser, which is happening together with this roll. And another riser. And another reverse crash. This one's longer. So that is how I made my remix of The Light. Now, the arrangement is pretty standard for me. I've got my main break pretty much bang in the middle, 1 minute intro, 1 minute outro. It's a little bit under 6 minutes, slightly on the shorter side for me, which my tracks are sometimes 7 minutes. But it worked for this. I've played this a lot, and it's a really functional track. Gets great crowd reactions, so I'm really, really stoked with that. And it's always a pleasure to work with such amazing vocals. You can see from the arrangement here, basically everything's building up, creating some kind of like, just progressing through the track, introducing new elements. We finally get to the vocal here after about 2 minutes. I can see the light. But we've been progressively introducing it with these kind of little shots, Right, so by the time the vocal comes, you're already familiar with the sound and the texture of it. Then we keep kind of building. Adding some of these pads and atmosphere to build up towards the break. In the break, I introduce this new riff that just helps to freshen things up, keep it interesting. As I showed you, using the automation and everything, it kind of adds a bit more intensity to the track. And then we come back, so you can see here I had it before the break, introducing it here. But just kind of holding it back and then introducing it here and then having it play after creates like some dynamics in the arrangement. It means that this part here feels like an elevation from this part. There our outro starts there. So there you go. I'm gonna create a little giveaway with some of the elements. It obviously won't have the vocal in it, but basically just a little loop inspiration pack that you can grab from Patreon if you want to download that. There's also the project files for almost all of the videos that I do on the channel. And if you like the sounds in this, a lot of them have come from my Underground Shades of House Volume 2 sample pack, which is out now on houseofloop.com. Alright guys, thanks for sticking with me. That's how I made my remix of The Light. If you like these type of videos where I walk through my tracks, check out this playlist. I break down some of my biggest tunes. Alright, well that's it from me today. We'll catch you next time. Peace.